All right. Good morning, everyone. How you doing out there? Hey, I'm excited. We got some fun stuff we're talking about today. But before we get started, I want to remind you, on your way out, we have a black bucket back there on our sound booth. That right there is for our offering. God calls us to give back. And so if you make any money or something like that and you want to give back to God, it goes in there. That money goes to Outside the Bowl, that we are building super mega kitchens around the world that can do 6 to 8,000 meals a day. And they actually take those to kids that are starving, and they also tell them about the gospel. It's pretty amazing what God is doing through Outside the Bowl, and we're helping them do that. Also, you have in your buckets prayer cards. They're green, and if you have any prayer requests, right on the back of those, any prayer requests, we pray for them every Thursday morning. Our staff does pretty awesome. So, want to let you know that. Otherwise, if you want to pull out your white note sheets, I'm excited. We got some fun stuff. We're starting a new series, and we're going to talk more about that. But let me go ahead and open us in a word of prayer, and let's get started. So, dear God, I just want to thank you so much again for who you are, Lord. Lord, I just pray today as we start this new series. Lord, there are students that have a lot of questions. They have friends that have questions just about who you are and what your Bible says. Lord, would you give us those answers, Lord? Would you give us the confidence? Would you strengthen our faith, Lord? Lord, I pray that you'd speak clearly through me today. And Lord, would you help these students to get their questions answered? We love you so much in your name. Amen. Hey, we are starting a new series, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But before we share what's going on, I want to have you check out this clip. It's from a movie called God's Not Dead, so check it out.
And with your permission, I would like to bypass this senseless debate altogether and jump to the conclusion, which every sophomore is already aware of: there is no God. All I require from each of you that you fill in the papers that is given you with three little words: God is dead, along with your signature. Assuming we reach a unanimous consensus, which I expect we will, I will be spared the tedious duty of slogging through dry and dusty arguments, and you will bypass the section of the course in which students have traditionally received their lowest grades of the semester. And when you finish, please pass your papers to the right. You. You. The lowercase g. Maybe this one ought to get extra credit. Thank you. Excuse me, Mr.
Wheaton. Josh Wheaton.
Mr. Wheaton, is something wrong?
Yeah, I can't. I can't do what you want, Christian.
No, don't worry. You can still go back to your dorm room and sink to your knees and pray at your bedside if you like. What you do in your personal life is your business, but what you do in this class is mine. Allow me to explain the alternative. If you cannot bring yourself to admit that God is dead for the purposes of this class, then you will need to defend the antithesis, that God is not dead, and you'll need to do it in front of this class from the podium. And if you fail, as you shall, you will fail this section and lose 30% of your final grade right off the bat. Are you ready to accept that?
Well, who would decide whether I won or lost the argument?
Well, I would. It's not my class, my rules. Grading is my prerogative.
No disrespect, but I'm not sure you can be objective.
What would you propose?
What about them?
Well, that's interesting, but why would I want to empower them?
We've already won them over. I mean, I'd have to
you'll get 3 sessions, the last 20 minutes of each of the next 3 classes to make your case. I promise to keep my interruptions to a minimum. You may take whatever questions you'd like from the class, but it will not increase your allotted time. Of course, you'll be responsible for all the other class assignments. But, you could change your mind and bring in your signed statements at our next class, and we'll go forward as though none of this ever happened.
So that was a clip from God's Not Dead. And just like Josh was confronted with pretty much how do you know God exists, I want to let you know, I remember when I was in college, I grew up in a Christian home, went to a Christian church, was on leadership team, was in Awanas and all that stuff. And I felt like I knew my Lord and Savior, and I thought I knew enough until I went to college. You see, I remember still, it was my first or second semester there. I was in a philosophy class, and the teacher was dissing on Christianity and saying how there's no evidence that supports it. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, you might make some good points, but I'm still going to believe in him no matter what. And I felt like he almost put like a little kink in my armor, kind of like a little, kind of jacked me up a little bit. And I remember going, I wish I had the answers. You see, we are doing a series that is called Unshaken, because there is going to be a time in your life where you're going to come to a place, whether you ask questions, whether you have doubts about what you believe, or you will come across other people that are going to have questions and might even question what you believe. And what will happen is, just like Josh, your faith will start to get shaken. And what it can do is it can leave you in a place where you maybe walk away from Christ. In fact, most students walk away from Christ in college. And what we want to do this series is we want to start helping you create a faith that you are not unshaken. Why are we doing it? One is this, if you have your note sheets, is because we're all going to have questions in our life. No matter who you are, there are going to be times in your life where you're going to have questions. You're going to have questions about God, who he is he really real? Is the Bible really true? Did Jesus really die on the cross? Is he just a made-up figure, whatever it is? And these questions are what causes people to walk away, not having the answers. But the second thing is this. The reason why we're doing this series is, believe it or not, there are answers to our questions. There are answers. There are answers to most of your questions. You might feel like, no, you can't answer all my questions because this seems too complex to believe in a God we can't see. But I want you to know there are answers to almost all of your questions. There are. And believe it or not, God's not afraid of your questions. And third is this. And real quick, I will tell you, it even says in 1 Peter 3:15. Peter says that we should be always ready to give an answer for the faith. Give an answer for why we believe what we believe. We should be ready. And there are answers. Third thing is this. The answers that you get are actually going to make your faith stronger. They're actually going to make your faith stronger. And so we are doing this Unshaken series because we want to strengthen your faith. We want you to walk away that not only you have this relationship with Jesus Christ and you're starting to follow him and you believe him and you want to follow him and do some amazing things, but also when you are combated with different people who are saying, you're an idiot, you don't know what you believe, you can say, actually, I do. God calls us to not only have a faith with him, a childlike faith where we follow him even though we can't see him, but he also gives the opportunity to understand more about who our God is. And so what we're doing is we're going to be going through so many topics over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, however many weeks we're doing, and we're going to hopefully hit different topics that you might have questions about Christianity. We're pretty much going to put Christianity on trial is pretty much what we're going to do. And we're going to help you get the evidence you need. So today, we're going to start probably with one of the hardest ones. It's the hardest ones to sometimes understand, to really be equipped as a Christian. But it's also a pretty important one. And we're going to talk about, it's on your sheets, does God really exist? Does he really exist? And I want you to know something real quick. I am going to give you evidence. Now, it's important for you to know, I'm not saying that I'm going to prove today that God exists, because guess what? I can't prove that God exists. You're like, what? Well, Trav, then what do you mean? Why are you arguing for God? Well, here's the thing is, I can't completely prove God exists, because the only way we could prove God exists is if God showed up right here in front of you all and said, yo, homies, I'm God. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's God. Okay, God, you are alive, right? But because we can't see God, he has chosen to reveal himself in different ways to us. But because we haven't seen him, there are still ways to have evidence, but I can't completely prove. But here's what I want you to know. I have a lot of evidence that I'm going to share with you today. And the evidence, there's more evidence that supports that there is a God than evidence that there is not a God. In fact, if you were to weigh out the evidence, if we were standing on trial and we went before the court, the evidence for God is so amazing, and the evidence for not a God is like little. It's like nothing, and you will see how it way outweighs it, and that's what I want to do today. So my hope is that I'll give you this evidence, and you will go, oh my goodness, that's amazing. There is a lot of evidence for a God. And so here's what I want to do is I'm going to give you 3 arguments. They're legit theological arguments, philosophy arguments. And just, when I say theologians, theological is theologians are people that believe there's a God, okay? And I'm going to give you some arguments that stand up that no one's been able to disprove, but these arguments are evidence proving that there's a God. And so if you have your note sheets, they're on there. The first one is it's the evidence of creation. Creation. Write that down, creation. Okay? Write that down. So there's an argument. It's already written down on your note sheet. I want to go through this argument. This is a legit argument. I'm hoping you can fully understand it. It's not hard, but I'm going to help you flush this out and understand it. Check out, here's how the argument goes. Look right here. It says this. The universe had a beginning. The universe had a beginning. Anything that has a beginning must have been created by something. Okay, the second line, we know this. Anything that has a beginning must have been created by something. For instance, we were created. Okay? I don't know anyone that says that you say, yep, Travis, nope, I wasn't created. I just appeared. I just appeared, 13 years ago. No, we all know that you were born in this world from your mom and dad, and you know that you were created. And anything that was created had a beginning. We know that. We know that you had a beginning, okay? So the third thing is, therefore, the universe was caused by something. It was created by something else, and that is God. Now, here's the thing. When you look at this argument, we know 2 is true. We know 3 is true if number 1 is true. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you that the universe had a beginning. If we can prove today that the universe had a beginning, and we know number 2 is correct, then that means number 3 has to be correct. So we got to figure out, did the universe really have a beginning? You see, scientists back in the day, they believed the universe did not have a beginning. They believed that it always existed. It was infinite. Now, here's the problem about that argument. The problem with that argument is if the universe always existed, this is crazy to think. It's out there, and it would be hard for you to comprehend. I'd have to really break it down. I don't have time to do this, but I will tell you this. If the universe always existed, then there would be no time. And then we actually would not exist in time, because an infinite thing cannot have time. It's crazy, because we know this, God created time. But if the universe was infinite, there would actually be no time. So we know that it had to exist. But there is a scientist back in the day in 1929. His name was Edwin Hubble. You can write this down. Edwin Hubble, he discovered the Hubble telescope. And here's what he discovered. He had this telescope that was the one of the best ones at the time, or it was the best, and it was able to look into the universe, and he discovered something that was amazing. He discovered that the universe was expanding. So the universe was getting larger and larger and larger. And what he discovered was this, is when he looked into the center of the universe, he discovered in the center of the universe, it was going slower. And as you got farther out of the outer of the universe, it was going faster. And he said, because of the evidence that I have seen, because the scientific evidence that I have observed, I have discovered that, guess what? The universe must have had a beginning. It had to have begun because it's expanding. And he said, because of this, he created a theory. There's a theory called the Big Bang. Okay? The Big Bang theory came up. Now, here's the crazy part, is in science class, you are taught about the Big Bang theory. And the Big Bang theory actually is evidence, they say, that evidence for evolution, right? They're like, see, it all started the Big Bang. But here's what they don't understand. The Big Bang also helps our first argument that the universe had a beginning. Okay, yep, thanks, you can do that. But this Big Bang thing actually supports our argument that the universe has a beginning. And if the universe has a beginning, we know anything that has a beginning had to have been created by something. Therefore, the universe had to have been created by who? God. Okay, so they don't understand this. This big argument actually supports a God. And they're like, wait, they use it for evolution. Well, here's the crazy part is, Genesis 1 talks about, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Says, in the beginning, he created light. He said, let there be light. And theologians have said, when he says, let there be light, and when the universe came into existence, was he said, let there be light, boom, it would have created a huge boom like the Big Bang. So actually, the Big Bang is supported. It actually supports Genesis chapter 1. So here's the thing. The first one is, if we can find out the universe had a beginning, something had to have created it. And we know that because of Edwin Hubble, and then there's been more scientists that come out and say there had to be a beginning. It actually now supports there had to be a creator that started it. And so if we go back to our argument says the universe had a beginning. We know that. Edwin Hubble supports that. Science supports that. The Big Bang supports that. Anything that has a beginning must have been created by something. Therefore, the universe was caused by something else, God. Now, some people, atheists, will argue, well, who created God? Who created God? That is going to be an argument. Well, who created God? Well, here's the problem. It is easier to explain that the universe was created by a God who is infinite, who created time. It's easier to explain that there's a God that created it than it is to say that something came out of nothing. Then it's say, because then you go, well, who created you? Well, I was created by my parents. Well, who created them? Well, then who created the universe? Well, then who created the thing that created the universe? And it keep going back, and you can't explain that. So it's easier to explain there had to have been someone that created it. So this is an argument that no one has been able to disprove. No one's been able to disprove it. So one kink right there, one element that you can use in your argument. The second one is this. It's called design. The second evidence is called the design. Okay? It's called design. And I want to show you this argument. Check this out. All designs imply a designer. There is a great design in the universe. Therefore, there must be a great designer of the universe, God. Now, check this. All designs imply a designer. All designs imply a designer. So let's just say, go on this journey with me. Let's say that my family and I are going on a cruise. We just went on a cruise like 3 or 4 years ago to the Eastern Caribbean. And we're going on all these islands. Let's say we're on this huge mega ship, and there was a storm came, and somehow it destroyed the ship, and the ship sank. But me being strong Trav, okay, buff Trav, I grabbed my family, and they used me as a floating device somehow, okay? And we survive the storm, and we land on some deserted island. It's just me and my family. And what do we do when we get there? We're trying to find out, is there any water? Is there any food? Is there anyone on the island that can maybe help us? So we walk around the whole island. It's not that big. and we discover there's no one on there. There's nothing there. We're trying to survive, and we start looking for stuff. And as we're walking out, my daughter is walking through the forest of this little island where all the trees are, and she finds an iPhone. She finds an iPhone. It's buried. It's like under the sand. It looks like it's been there for a while. And she goes, "Oh, my goodness, Dad. There was an iPhone that just miraculously just appeared on the island. There's been no one here, Dad. There's no way this thing, the universe created an iPhone for us. Is that crazy? Would anybody believe that? No. If she found an iPhone in the middle of, on a deserted island, what would we assume happened? Somebody was there and dropped it. Or somehow it was dropped in the storm and the storm waters pushed it to shore. Am I right? But there's no way anyone believes the universe, just because of the sand and dust in the air and because of millions and billions of years, it created an iPhone on its own. Has that ever happened? No. Someone designed this thing. And we know for a fact if it was on a deserted island, somebody designed this. Like that argument, all things that are designed have a designer. Right? It would be crazy to think this would just appear out of thin air from just billions of years of sand floating in the air would create this. It'd be impossible because it had a designer. Well, I want you to know something. In our theory, it says there is a great design in the universe. We have to prove that there's a great design in the universe. But let's just be honest. Can you tell there's a great design in the universe? Let me tell you how complex this universe is. If you were here Tuesday night when Austin spoke, our axis, did you know the world is on an axis that is perfectly put there the right way, that if it was just a degree or 2 degrees off, we would all burn? Did you know that the earth is actually just the perfect distance from the sun that we don't burn up, and the perfect distance away from the sun that if it was any farther, we would actually freeze to death? Okay? We have been trying to get to Mars. They want to have life on Mars. They want us to go live on Mars. And even if that happens, Mars is surrounded by carbon. There's no oxygen on there. So if we go there, even if we get there, and they're trying to make it happen, it's still, we'd have to be in buildings that protect us from the atmosphere of Mars, that protect us from the cold weather, because it's freezing there. It's like below zero everywhere on there. And you would have to actually have created air in there, and you have to, like, still we would have to figure a way to live there because we couldn't. Because that's what's weird about the way the earth was designed. It's perfectly in the right place. It even spins the perfect speed that we don't fall off. It's like crazy. There's even more things. There's so much design in the universe. It had to have been designed. But see, look at all designs imply designer. There's a great design in the universe. We know that. In fact, did you know that our brains, we can hold the capacity. It's crazy to think, but our brains are so complex that we can hold up to 20 million volumes of encyclopedias in our brains. What do you mean, what's that? The encyclopedia is a book that's of information. We don't use those all the time anymore. That's where the name Wikipedia came from. Wikipedia would be a type of encyclopedia, except people typed it in. It's not as accurate because people can put whatever they want on there. That's why it's not completely accurate. But there used to be encyclopedias back in my day. We'd have to look those up to get information, and now you have the internet. But 20 million volumes of encyclopedias, which is an incredible amount of information we can fit in our brains. That is complex. I could go more complex. I could talk about just how much information one little single-cell amoeba, which is tiny, 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 how much information they can. It's unbelievable how complex and how designed this universe is. In fact, did you know that even the way the Earth atmosphere works and how things work even on this Earth, for instance, did you know that, you know this part, but did you know we breathe in, what? Oxygen. And we breathe out something called carbon dioxide, right? And isn't this weird? But there are plants that they breathe in, what? Carbon dioxide, and they exhale, what? oxygen. Is that crazy? Like, we work together. Is that unbelievable how God even designed that? How complex, how things work perfectly together. In fact, I don't know if you guys knew this. Do you know what creates the most oxygen in the world? Does anyone know where it is? Nope, not humans. Some people used to say the rainforest. It's not the rainforest. Did you know the rainforest doesn't, what is it? Plankton. It's actually algae found in the ocean. Did you know the oceans create more oxygen and absorb more carbon dioxide than anything in the world? Technically, we could destroy the whole Amazon forest, and there would still be enough oxygen because of how much oxygen is just in the algae in all the oceans. I'm not saying we should destroy the rainforest, okay? But we could, because that's where all of our oxygen comes from. But here's the thing is, God designed it so that it's too much, it fits too perfectly. It fits too perfect. So first argument is this, is that creation, because there's a beginning of the universe, there had to be a creator, that's God. Second thing is because there's great design, we know that a designer creates a design, then we know that there's too much design. There had to have been someone who designed this universe. It's too perfect. So our second argument is the design one. Those are two amazing arguments that's almost enough right there to prove there's a God. But there's a third one. A third one is called the moral law argument. The moral law argument, and it is this right here. Moral law argument. It says this right here. All men are conscious of an objective moral law. Okay, real quick, I need to explain that. Objective means true for everyone. Okay? There is a true moral law for everyone. All men are conscious about that. We all believe there is a moral law that's true for everyone. It actually says in Romans 2:14 and 15, it talks about how the laws are written on our hearts. That the law, Paul says, guess what? Even the Gentiles, which were not the Jews, even they had the law written on their hearts. There is an objective moral law that is written on our hearts. And it says this argument is moral laws imply there must have been a moral lawgiver. So if we can prove there really is an objective moral law, then there must have been someone who gave us that moral law. And therefore, if there's a supreme moral law, then that must be God. So we would have to prove, well, is there an objective moral law? Is there really objective moral law? Is there really an inner thing that tells us what's good or bad? Now, I will tell you this. I did not have to tell my kids when they were younger that something was fair or not. Oh, easily, Dad, that's not fair. That's unfair. It's weird how we just know this. It's built in our hearts. It's built in us. This right and wrong. It's built in the way we live our lives. I remember we were standing in line. I can't remember if it was to go to a movie or if it was to go on a ride. And I remember some people cut in front of us. And I remember one of my kids, it was probably my daughter, was like, Daddy, they cut in front of us. And because I was bigger than them, they're like, Daddy, you should do something about it. You know what I mean? But it's funny how they knew immediately, well, that's unfair. They cut in front of us. Even the person behind me, because I was big, those people was like, dude, those people cut in front of us. Can you take care of that? And it's like, geez, we know what's fair. It's built in our hearts. Now, people would argue, well, that's not true. That's not true. Ours is built on our society of how we were raised. And I want to let you know that's not true, because they would say not everybody has that same objective moral law. Because guess what? There are indigenous tribes around the world that do not have the same moral law as us. In fact, they would say that some of them believe murder's okay. Some of them believe different things are okay. So that would prove that we do not have an objective moral law. And here's what I would say. If I was to talk to them, I'd say, okay, well, let's just say, imagine you went on a trip to one of these indigenous islands or something like that, these tribal people that have these different moral laws than us, and let's say they grabbed your little sister and they proceeded to eat her alive. Would that be wrong? And if they said, No, it wouldn't be wrong because that wasn't their moral law. They would have to actually claim that. And if they claimed that that was not wrong, then they would say that moral law is subjective, meaning it's not absolutely true for everyone. And if that is true, then guess what? If there is not objective moral law, which there is, because if there was not, then guess what? If I come back to the United States, if there's no objective moral law, then I don't have to worry about objective law. And that means I can steal anything I want. And if someone goes, whoa, you can't steal that, that's against the law, I can say, well, there's no objective law. Well, yeah, there is. No, there's not. You said there isn't. And the minute they say, yes, there is, then they just supported my theory. And then I would say, well, if that's true, if there's no objective law, then I can kill whoever I want because there is no objective law. But the problem is there is objective law. We all know that. It's written on our hearts. And if there is an objective moral law written on our hearts, then we know moral laws imply a moral lawgiver, and that moral lawgiver is God. And so I'm giving you another argument that says we can look at creation. We can look at the design of the universe. And we can look at even the moral law that's written on our hearts. And all three of them point to there has to be a God. There has to be a God. It's evidence. Remember, I said I can't prove it because the only way I can prove it is if God appeared right now. But we have evidence that no one's been able to disprove or discredit just in those three arguments. Now, I gave you those three arguments because that is to help you have confidence, that it would strengthen your faith to know there is a God and there's evidence that supports their God, evidence outside of the Bible. And we're actually going to keep going on in the next few weeks. We're going to talk about how the Bible is the most accurate thing written, how it is the truth. But I wanted to give you evidence of what we believe, that there is a God. Now, I want you to understand as you leave, a couple things I want you to know about this. I did not give you this so that you could go to school tomorrow and then blast your science teacher, okay? In fact, we are not supposed to use this to argue because guess what? Arguing the faith doesn't win anyone over. It's used to strengthen our faith and then also to answer questions. And it says to do it gently. So if your friends have questions, but how do you know God exists? Well, let me give you some cool things that help support it. It gives you confidence, but it should be done gently, not with a way to go, you're an idiot, let me prove it to you. That would not be why I gave you this. I gave it so you can have confidence. You can have confidence to know that there is a God and there's evidence that supports there is a God. The second thing I want you to know about God is this, is our God, even though he created the universe, he designed this special. We have a God that wants to have a relationship with you. That's what's the most amazing thing is we have a God who said, I didn't only create the universe and I didn't walk away and say, it is done. And I walked away and said, no, I want to have a relationship with you. I want to have a relationship with you. And that is what's amazing about our God, that he said, I want to have a relationship with you. And because you're sinners and you made mistakes, I have to send my son to pay for your sins so I can still have a relationship. He wants a relationship. That's what's amazing about our God. But I wanted to give you evidence today to support there is a God. And if I were you, I'd learn those and read through it, and it should give you confidence. You see, I'm excited about this series, Unshaken. I'm excited to see if it gives you more strength, if it strengthens your faith to where you can be unshaken. So when you go to class one day, you don't feel nervous, you can have that confidence. I'm going to go ahead and pray, but just let you know, if you have any questions, you can talk to Taylor, me at the end, or Tim, or any one of our leaders. Michael, he would love to answer your questions back there. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll just send you to me, all right? But Michael knows more than he'll say he doesn't know that much. No, he knows a lot. But we want you to ask us questions and like that. So let's go ahead and pray. Dear God, I just want to thank you so much for who you are, Lord. Lord, I love that not only did you create the universe, not only did you create us, Lord, but you created us with the ability to reason your existence. Lord, it talks about in the Bible that if you can't look at just creation and know there's a God, there's something wrong. Because, Lord, just by looking at the way it all fits together points to a creator. We don't need your word to know that, but it's awesome your word echoes that. Lord, I'm excited to see what you're going to create in these students, Lord, because we have questions. I had questions. I always had questions. But, Lord, what I didn't realize when I was younger is that there's answers to all of it. And, Lord, I'm so glad that there are brilliant people out there that are helping us figure out these answers, because I'm not brilliant enough, Lord. But I love how there's people there, Lord. Thank you for them. Lord, may today and the rest of this series give us so much confidence. We love you so much. In your name, amen.